can be limiting, broad, vague, and non-descriptive. And we all know that not all ticket workflows are created equal and that they require greater flexibility and greater granularity. And so, depending on your company and how customer support is structured, your service platform may be supporting multiple departments, various complex processes, and life cycles that are multi stage and unique to your organization and customers. These circumstances require tools that allow you to better define these support workflows and transition them to the next stage of the ticket lifecycle. So that's where custom ticket statuses comes in. So now you'll be able to customize your statuses to reflect your business's operations and workflows in a much more accurate and meaningful manner. With this feature, you can create views that are based on certain statuses to prioritize critical requests. You can keep your agents and your collaborators better aligned, and you can strengthen the relationships you have with your customers. Customers that are already using custom ticket statuses have gained a couple of benefits like improvement in their resolution times, streamlined collaboration, and as mentioned previously, stronger relationships with customers. So for example, setting SLAs based on custom statuses, being able to see custom statuses in your views, updating a ticket's custom status through macros, all of these can help improve resolution times. The visibility of more detailed and meaningful statuses enhances collaboration among multiple agents who are tackling the same ticket. And furthermore, the flexibility to incorporate your custom statuses into both the conditions and actions of your triggers and your automation workflows, those serve to streamline collaboration even further. Lastly, you can develop stronger customer relationships because there's clear communication and transparency through customizable customer-facing statuses that are reflected on the customer's tickets and in their help center's My Request view. So here are some examples of enterprise ticket lifecycles and the custom statuses that are mapped to them. For example, in the general support queue, you may find statuses like untriaged, escalated premium customer, and reopened to be helpful. In another example, if you have order issue workflows, statuses like investigating order issue, account info missing, and awaiting change requests may also be helpful. All right, so now I'm gonna unshare my screen, or actually I'm gonna share a different screen, and we're gonna pivot to some live demos so you can see custom ticket statuses in action. Okay. Is there a way to just share my whole desktop through this tool? Ah, here it is. Entire. Okay, I found it. Alrighty. Can you see my test account?
Yep, we sure can.
Okay, awesome. Alrighty. So if you want to start using custom ticket statuses, you would go into Admin Center under Objects and Roles, and then go to Ticket Statuses. And so if you don't already have custom statuses that you've created, you'll probably see something similar to this view. So you'll notice that all of those standard statuses that came with Zendesk out of the box, these now become status categories. So new, open, pending, on hold, and solved are these status categories. And then within each of these status categories, we have these default statuses that map back to the category. And these are actually editable, but initially they just map the category. And so if you want to create a new ticket status, you would go ahead and click this Create Ticket Status button. You would choose from this dropdown which status category the status you're creating maps to. So for instance, you could put pending. And then you would decide what you want to call this status and what that label would be viewed as by your agents. So for instance, you could write something like customer info, customer account info missing. And then you can add a description that's also agent view facing. So something like account info from customer is needed to proceed. And then you also have an option to customize the custom status label for your end users. So you might want to use something that's just more customer friendly, for instance. So you could update that here. And for the purposes of our demo, I actually created a bunch beforehand, so let's take a look at those. So these are a bunch of custom statuses that I've created in my account. So to walk through one as an example, for this row, we have as the agent view, the name is escalated to senior agents, and the description is escalated tickets require immediate attention. And then for the end user view, they'll just see escalated. And then for description, they'll see your ticket has been escalated for immediate attention. Okay, so now I'm going to flip over to the agent view so you can see how CTS is manifested there. So here in your views, you can see the different custom statuses that align to each of your tickets. You can create specific views that filter down to tickets with a specific custom status. So for instance, I have a view where you can see all of your tickets with investigating billing. I have a view for escalated tickets, and then I also have a view for refund issued. And one thing that I'll call out is that with custom ticket statuses activated, you'll be able to distinguish between solved tickets that are not yet closed and are still editable with solved tickets that are closed and that are not editable through two different ways. So here there's a closed icon here. So you'll see this ticket is closed and cannot be edited. And then also you'll see that there's a grayed out checkbox here. When you hover on here, it says the ticket is closed and cannot be edited. You can also hover over your various tabs, and so that'll give you a preview of the status of your tickets. And then if you click into an actual ticket, you can click on the customer context panel, and in your interactions, you'll actually see all of the different custom ticket statuses that your ticket has gone through over the course of time. And then, of course, based on the statuses that you configured in Admin Center, those will be reflected here in your ticket status picker. And so you can hover on a status, and it'll also show you the description so that you have more context on what that status means. Another cool thing is that when you go to a user profile, you can also see all of their statuses with their custom statuses aligned with each ticket. Excuse me. And then if you go to the end user's help center on the My Request page, similarly, you'll also be able to see the more granular custom ticket status over here. And you can also hover on them, and then you'll see the description for the status. So the end user has that extra context. And then similarly, if you just click into one of your tickets, you'll also be able to see the ticket and the description as well. Okay, so now I'm gonna walk through a live demo of custom ticket status in action. So let's pretend that end user Ann Lynn is submitting a customer support request to the print shop because she received an order, but she realized that 4 items are missing. So she's going to go ahead and submit this ticket. So now we have this ticket. We're going to come in. I'm going to assign this ticket to Jack Smith and give this a priority of normal. So if I'm Jack Smith, I'll notice, okay, she did not provide her order ID. So I'm going to actually go ahead and apply this macro that I have called request order number that asks her to provide that. And at the same time, this macro actually updates the status to submit as order details missing. So then we come back to the end user, and she'll reply, okay, here you go. My order number is 1111. And so now that we have this order, I'm going to also apply a macro called investigating order issue that also changes the status of the ticket to investigating order issue and communicates with the end user. I'm going to go ahead and click that. But then let's say some time passes and the end user, Anne, is getting impatient And so she really wants to know what's going on. She wants this resolved ASAP. So she reaches out for an update. And then perhaps I am a a lead on my team, and so I notice this. And so I want to actually go ahead and escalate this ticket. So I'm going to, again, use this macro I have called escalate a ticket. So that sends a message to Anne just apologizing and reassuring her that we're going to escalate this for immediate attention. And that also updates that status to escalated to senior agents. So you'll notice that there are a couple of changes that happened to this ticket, and that's because on the back side in the admin center, I had created a couple of different workflows. So for instance, I created a trigger that whenever a ticket enters the status escalated to senior agents, it'll reroute the ticket to the escalation group. It'll add a tag called escalated, and it'll update the priority to urgent. And then you'll also notice here that an SLA has been applied. And that's because in Admin Center, I created an SLA policy that when a ticket enters this escalate to senior agent status, it'll apply this SLA. So now I know how much time do I have to reply and to solve this ticket. So let's say I go ahead and I looked into everything. I decide, okay, we're going to actually reship out these 4 items. So then I'll just go ahead and wrap up this ticket and submit it as order reshipped. So that was like the main live workflow that I wanted to showcase in terms of how you can leverage triggers and macros and SLAs using custom ticket statuses. But I'll also show an automation that I created. So on the back end, I have an automation that says if I have a ticket status that's in end review, once the ticket has been in that status for 2 hours, I want to reassign this ticket to Gaurav. And so obviously we don't have 2 hours together, but I ran this automation on a ticket previously, and so we can take a look at that together here. So I'm just in the events tab of your ticket, and so you'll see here this ticket was in the in-end review status. And then once 2 hours had passed while being in this status, it went ahead and it reassigned it to Gaurav. And so then Gaurav would get notified to start tackling this ticket. Alrighty. And then one more thing that I wanted to show is that related to closed tickets, if you're searching for tickets, we also have this ability under the filters to either include or exclude closed tickets. So right now you'll see here, like this is a closed ticket and that's included in the search results. But if I just uncheck that, it'll remove the closed ones and then it filters down to the tickets that I can actually edit and take action on. Alrighty. Okay, so I'm going to pause here and flip back to our slides. Okay, where did the slides go? Okay. Alrighty. All right, so to maximize your productivity with custom ticket statuses, here are 5 best practices that we recommend following. So tip 1 is to group similar ticket statuses under the same category as you see here on the right-hand side. Where possible, try to keep the names of your custom statuses short. We do have a character limit, so anything beyond 35 characters will get truncated. Tip 3, mentioned this before, but if there are certain statuses that could benefit from having more customer-friendly language, you definitely would want to just leverage updating what the end user sees. Tip 4, you can leverage the dynamic content feature to translate your ticket statuses into the local languages of your international teams. And then tip 5, you could follow this explore recipe that we have, and you could create a report that sees how many tickets are in each of your custom statuses. Alrighty, so what now? As you can see from some of the examples shown here, we've heard a lot of feedback from the enterprise community on how custom ticket statuses can be improved, and so there's definitely still work to be done. And I apologize in advance. I wish I could show you like prototypes and mock-ups, but I'm unable to do that on this call just because I think everyone would have to sign an NDA. So I'm going to try to like voice over what's coming. Okay, so in terms of what's in development right now, we're working on a capability for admins to associate custom ticket statuses to your ticket forms. So what this means is that whatever ticket form that's being used on your ticket, that's going to determine which custom statuses are shown in that ticket status picker. So globally right now, you're seeing like all of your custom statuses. It can get really long. This is going to help shorten it to the relevant set based on the ticket form you're using. And so additionally, once status to form associations are enabled, because you can already limit a form to a subset of brands, you'll also be able to configure brand-based statuses. So for instance, if only brand A can use form A, then only brand A will be able to use the custom statuses associated with form A. So that's what's currently in development. So with regard to what's planned, we're similarly looking to enable group-based statuses at the ticket form level. So similarly, if only Group A can use Form A, then Group A can use all the statuses associated with Form A. And then another item that we are planning to introduce is the custom ticket status duration metric. And so this metric would allow you to see how long a ticket has spent in a specific custom status. So for instance, if you have a ticket and it's in the status of in legal review for like way longer than what you would expect or what it has typically been, that could signal to your team lead that, hey, there's like a presence of bottlenecks. And so you may want to link up with your agent team and your legal partners to troubleshoot in order to get the time spent in the status of in legal review down. And yeah, looking further down the road, there are additional enhancements that we're considering. So this first one here, we're looking to support the scenario where multiple groups or multiple brands are working on the same single ticket. So for example, let's say a ticket is using a ticket form A that has 6 statuses, and there are 2 groups working on this ticket. Of those 6 statuses, not all 6 are probably relevant for each of the groups. So for group A, you might only find, statuses 1 and 2 and 5 and 6 relevant. So they would only see statuses 1, 2, 5, and 6 in the status picker. But then for group B, they may only find statuses 3, 4, 5, and 6 relevant. So for them, they would only see 3, 4, 5, and 6. So essentially, each group would see a subset of all of the statuses that are associated with a form in this scenario. Secondly, we're also looking into enhancements to SLAs. So for instance, having the ability to pause on a specific custom ticket status or having the ability to apply an SLA time to a specific custom ticket status. We're also looking into a couple of UI and customization enhancements. So for example, being able to customize the color coding of your custom statuses, different from what, is currently offered out of the box, and then also the ability to reorder the sequence with which the custom statuses appear across different ticket forms as well as across the ticket status picker. And then lastly, we're also considering providing a way just to bulk create multiple custom ticket statuses all at once. As you saw in the demo earlier, like you're creating them one by one right now. Alrighty. So that wraps up what I have to share today. And so I think at this point, we could move to open discussion. I prepared some questions for the group to go over. But I do want to just pause and just see if like anyone had any questions on what I've shared so far before moving into open discussion.
Cathy, thank you so much for the demo. this is really cool. I've been working with Zendesk for 10 years and being, kind of stuck with really just 4 statuses. It wasn't a scalable way for enterprise customers for ever. So it's we have a lot of internal documentation here at work about like, use pending in this case, on hold in this case, and being able to make it much more obvious is going to be a help. Seeing on your roadmap already, limiting it to groups or forums or stuff like that is a huge boon. Me and Tiffany both mentioned in the chat. That's what's actually stopping us from using custom ticket statuses right now, is that we don't necessarily want everyone to see all of them, because we have a mixed instance. We have a whole bunch of different teams, and some statuses just aren't relevant to other teams. So thank you for the foresight on solving that problem ahead of time.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I'm glad to hear that hopefully soon in the near future, you'll be able to start using this feature with the introduction of form status associations.
Do you have any timeline on when we can look forward to those enhancements?
Yeah, so right now we are targeting a Q1 closed EAP for that, and I'll actually be sharing a couple of links at the end of our call. And so if there's anyone here today that is interested in participating in the EAP, we'd love for you to express your interest. It doesn't necessarily guarantee you'll be in it, but it'll definitely help us so that we can consider the full list we want to invite. We are trying to limit initially to around like 20 to 30 accounts. Yeah.
Gotcha. I know one tiny detail while you're talking about the the UX is wrap text on those custom statuses that are a little long. I noticed it's, widening that column out. So just want to throw that out there if you could consider that.
So you're saying why, like, not truncating it at 35?
Or wrapping the text on those statuses.
Or wrapping the text.
Yeah, if you've got a long status, it widens the column out instead of being able to wrap the text down and keep those buttons.
Got it. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and I know Jenny's helping us take notes, so we'll definitely.
And I am curious if there's a best practice on like how many is too many for any given. How many statuses? I'd open that up to the group. Like, what do you guys think? Like, ideas, thoughts? How do you come up with the list when you've got a lot of different stakeholders?
I'm happy to voice my opinion, Tiffany, but I will leave the floor open. I feel like I talk a lot. But if someone else wants to chime in or doesn't have anything. 3, 2, cool. Opportunity was given. That's a really good question. I think from an operational standpoint, I don't think I'd want to have more than, let's say, 10 statuses, even amongst multiple teams, and really kind of limit the number of custom statuses to teams, just because the overhead is so much, in my opinion. It's the same thing, like I try to build generic triggers, right? I imagine you'd want to try to build more generic yet specific statuses in my mind is how I would want to build. But I also see an opportunity for really business-driven granularity here as well. So I'm of two minds on that one. I think if I was making 10, I'd want very limited generic, but I do see like having 50 of them, but only when we have those group-based filters and brand-based filters. For example, I have teams like AV and procurement and workplace and facilities and travel all in the same instance here at Pinterest. And each of them are going to have their own handful of things that are most important to them. Same with the shipping team as well. Like they're to be very, very specific. So I'm going to step outside of my comfort zone of generic scalable building and actually allow teams to be granular, which actually, Cathy, brings up a question I have for you. Do you see somewhere on the roadmap of expanding management of custom ticket statuses similar to triggers being brand-based and stuff like that, going into roles? So I can say, hey, you're in this brand, you're the admin for the brand that I have in the instance, you can modify your team's statuses. Is that something you think will be on the roadmap?
Yeah, it's not something we have on the roadmap right now, but would love to learn more about that. Like maybe you could write up a use case in more detail and then pass it along to Tiffany, who has my email, and would love to, better understand and consider that for sure. And actually, Nicholas, I have a follow-up question for you.
Mhm.
So you mentioned, like, obviously it'd be helpful to have a subset of statuses that are only available for one group versus another.
Mhm.
Is your expectation that that group would have the ability to use those statuses across all tickets, no matter what ticket form they are? Or would it be more so the statuses that they have ability to use is actually tied to the ticket form, and so it will vary in that sense?
I think I'd want, honestly, to a certain degree, both. And I'll explain why. Let's say you're a team lead or a manager, and you might have a team that handles a ton of different things. Being able to loop in or to designate a escalations group as a whole to a certain set of ticket field values would be really good, where they're not necessarily part of the form, but if you're part of a group, you see them. That's kind of how I would see it. So instead of adding all the escalation statuses for every single form, because we have 50 of them, it'd be cool to just be like, cool, you're in the escalation group, you get these statuses when you open up any ticket, because that's relevant to your job function.
Mm-hmm.
I see that being, maybe that's just like my enterprise edge case on this one, but I see them being used to opting in at a group level rather than it being a form level as well.
Mm-hmm. And what if you had the option to kind of do that, but like with one click, apply it to all forms, but it would only be available for that particular group?
I would take that.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's the operational like overhead. Like when you get enterprise into the enterprise thing, you're dealing with so much like click and do buttons. And the more we can both run operations, the better. Because I have a small team of admins and I don't want to have someone spend an entire day just click, 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 click.
Right.
It's not a good use of time.
Mm-hmm.
But apply to all forms will be great.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Okay, cool. Awesome. Well, were there any other questions from folks, or should we move into the open discussion questions?
We have a couple of comments in the chat, so I wanted to make sure if those people who've thrown in their comments wanted to discuss it a little more in detail. I was just looking at Chris's comment about agents choosing the right one. That's definitely a pain point I'm concerned about. I like the idea of using macros as much as possible, even if it doesn't contain a reply to the customer, even if it's just an internal note telling the agent how to distinguish between them, things like that. But any other ideas or thoughts on how we can help agents with choosing the right one once we launch more custom statuses?
Have triggers to set them.
Triggers is a good way. Education, I think, is a really I think that sounds like a lot of user education. And I think, Cathy, I saw there's a description box for the status. Correct me if I'm wrong, when you're in the UI of it, there's like a little description. Is that like a little growler that pops up on hover, or like
Yes, exactly.
I think that might be the best way to do like in-app education. It's like, oh yeah, a good name and triggers, but a good description when there is ambiguity, I think is probably the biggest learning moment. But it sounds like we can report on these custom statuses, so you should hopefully be able to figure out where stuff is mismatched. There's always learning opportunities. Agents do their best.
Yes, definitely. I think the agent descriptions are helpful to provide the context to figure out which one to select. Yeah.
I do have one more broader question about this, Cathy, before we go into open discussion. How are you thinking about custom statuses with things like advanced Zendesk AI and triage and like layout builder and stuff like that? Like how do you see this feature playing into like the other enterprise work we've had a privilege of seeing from other product managers here? fitting into the larger
Yeah.
objective of the platform?
Yeah, good question. I actually have a meeting with the flexible layouts team next week to start thinking about what this could look like in that context. I know currently there's a way to configure which forms to surface in the workspace. And so because we are building for the EAP a way to associate statuses to forms, one idea is to initially kind of bring custom ticket statuses into the contextual workspace as more of a read view only, and not so much as a point of configuration, at least to start. and then in terms of AI, just making it easier for folks, I think I would love to get to a place where we have a lot of information about different types of customers. So whether you're like a workforce management customer versus a e-commerce customer or some other vertical, within each of those types of customers, there are probably a certain set number of foundational like forms that you all typically have. So for instance, order refunds, billing payment issues, things like that. And so with those forms, there are probably also sets of statuses that are common across customers in that vertical. And so I'd love to get to a point where we could provide some solutions kind of out of the box, and just give folks like a starting point so that they're not having to create all this from scratch. They can at least, tweak from there and further customize it. That's kind of where my head is at in terms of like future of CTS along with forms and other things. It even applies honestly to like triggers and automations. Like what are all these things that we can provide as kind of recipes to give to our customers out of the box?
100%. Like I'd want to use custom statuses in everything we could, right? Like whether that's triggers or automations. I'd love to use it with the triage portion of Zendesk Advanced Enhanced AI, because I'd love to be able to see, oh, hey, this is a return question. It looks at the thing and sets the appropriate custom status, right? Like those kind of things and those mappings would be like in the intents would just be phenomenal.
Yep.
Because I'm thinking about, where do I want to be in 2 years? I don't want to have to make triggers for everything. I want to use the smart little robots to do this work for me, because that's where I see the biggest benefit of AI. So that's what I'm thinking 2 years from now. So I'm glad you're in the ballpark.
Totally. Yeah, like how do we reduce admin configuration overhead is definitely a problem that we want to solve.
Yeah, even tying that into the things like content queues and the other portions that I've seen in Zendesk AI of like suggested statuses, like, oh, hey, we see you have on hold a lot for these types of tickets. Maybe you should have a descriptor for it or a different type of thing. Leveraging the tools we have to do those discoveries would be really great. And I know I'm asking for the moon, but the moon gets closer and closer every day.
Yeah, no, totally. I love that you are future thinking and the world is headed towards an AI world. So that makes total sense.
For better or worse.
I just saw, Amanda, your comment. Would love to understand this a little bit more, because we've actually set up custom ticket statuses so that if you have pre-existing conditions that point to those out-of-the-box standard statuses, that those should not break. And the reason is because new, open, pending, on hold, and solved, those become status categories. And so once custom ticket statuses are activated, we automatically make those status categories for you. And so they still point to the same new, open, pending, on hold, and solved. And so it shouldn't be breaking your workflow.
I'm pretty sure it did. Like they just went blank on me, but I don't have, I guess, a specific use case.
Okay.
I know I had to go in. Maybe I went back and adjusted some of them to our new status that we want it to trigger to.
Okay. Has anyone else had that happen to them? I'm just curious, like if there was something that you changed, because it should all automatically update to point to the status category that maps back to the old standard statuses.
We had the same issue happen, but I think it's because we needed things not, in a certain instance, not to go to solved. So we created a status called solved for agent that they used, but it put it into open. And we had an issue that we had a lot of things like triggers not running on certain things and like required fields not popping because now that it previously ran on solved and we were running
Mm-hmm.
it on opened, we did have that happen and I had to go in and update those triggers so it would run on that new custom status as well as when it was solved, just to make sure we were getting things coded correctly.
Got it. Okay. So it sounds like it was mapped to open incorrectly and had to get mapped back to the solved category. Is that right?
Eventually, we needed to stay as opened just because we're still waiting on something, but the agent's perspective is
Oh,
completely
uh-huh.
done. We needed it out of their view. So,
I see. Okay. Okay. Thank you for sharing. Jenny, if we could just take note of that so we can dig into that a little bit more on our end.
Yep, I got it. Thanks, Regina.
Thank you. Cool. Would now be a good time to transition to some of these open discussion questions?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, great. Alrighty. I don't know if there's like a hand raising feature in this tool, but I was gonna ask, like by a show of raised hands, how many of you here are already a custom ticket status user? Maybe we can write it in chat or just trying to get a sense of how many folks are already using this.
Hand
It looks
emojis in chat.
That works. Okay, cool. So it looks like around 4 of you are already using custom ticket statuses. So yeah, I'd love to hear from the 4 of you, like how, if you're willing to share, like how are you currently using custom ticket statuses? Would love to hear about like specific use cases and workflows. And then would love to understand how custom ticket status has helped improve your operations and workflows as a result.
I mean, I can jump in if you like.
Cool, yeah.
So just background. My use case is for HR only, and it's an internal use case. So
Mhm.
we've actually only been live with Zendesk since January. So
Okay.
this feature was already available at that point. So we did a lift and shift from our old system in terms of statuses. So we just brought them over. So I suppose we've only ever known the customization, so we've had no problems. And I mean, the way that we've had it for our particular cases is we've really only customized the hold ones. So we have a services organization that manages the tickets, and then if they need support from another HR team, we have in progress with other HR. We have a status if it's pending a vendor, and quite often we get tickets that are not actually, or they're involving another organization, so probably our IT team. And then occasionally we have a government, we're waiting on a local government issue because of taxes.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
we've not really utilized, maybe we haven't utilized it to its best because I suppose the focus has been when it's been with our services team and when it's
Mhm.
not, to try and capture that for the SLA. But like I did like some of the examples you had on your demo, because like actually there's quite a lot of teams involved sometimes, so it would
Mhm.
probably help the end user understand what's kind of happening.
Mhm.
So yeah, so that's our case, but it has been
Mhm.
there's been no issues for us.
Okay, cool. So just to like recap, it sounds like you've been using on hold custom statuses to provide more details around like who that third party um, entity or group is tackling the ticket at the moment. Is that right?
Yeah, it's kind of
Mhm.
trying to identify where any bottlenecks are.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that's the main reason.
Okay, cool. Thanks for sharing, Chris. Would anyone else like to share?
I can just add how we're using, I know in the general queue and your examples of custom ticket status, the reopen status has been really awesome for us. We use it for things that are, say there's an event date that triggers some action. So we reopen it certain number of days before the event date, which is a custom ticket field. And then we also use it to reopen tickets that have been on hold for 5 days to make the agent look at them again. That's been really helpful for us.
Awesome.
I love both of those ideas, Amanda. Actually, and it brings up a question I have for you, Cathy. Views and can you order by custom statuses inside of a view? I don't know if we saw that or not, but group by view, I should say.
Yeah, you can group by custom statuses. Yeah.
Okay. I just wasn't sure we'd seen that yet, but that is, I'm going to steal that when I eventually roll this out.
Yeah, that's a great use case. Thanks for sharing.
I actually like what you're talking about as like the in development, being able to limit these, because we have certain statuses that we're using with certain forms. We're CPG, and with that comes, foreign material occasionally. And when we send out for it, it's up to the consumer when they're going to send it back to us. And we have consumers that diligent send it back the same week, the following week. If not, we get some that send it back 3 months later. So, and because of the way our business is, we have to have a lab analyze it. That information has to come back. You have to look at how the ticket was coded, because it goes into the quality organization. So those tickets, we can't close them, but we also need to get it out of the agent, but we need to have it in so the lab team can get to it and use it separately with their form. And I run into an issue with, I'm seeing agents use the custom statuses and they shouldn't be. So being able to segment who can use them would be a great benefit for us, because I don't need 3 of them, the other people even seeing them or ever
Right.
touching them. But we're really using it just because we can't have those tickets close. And we don't want to put them on hold, because we need everything else about the ticket completed. We need any of the mailing material sent out to the consumer. We need it to flow into reporting, but we just need it not to close in case there are pieces and parts to it that for the quality organization we have to modify.
Yeah. Got it. That makes sense. Yeah, definitely. I think with being able to have group-based statuses, hopefully that'll help with preventing folks who should not be using that status from using it. Okay, cool. Well, so why don't we move on to the next question? All right, so this is for the rest of you, which I think is the majority of this group. So if you're not using custom ticket statuses already, does this seem useful for you? How do you envision using it? What are some statuses that you would create? I know we've kind of already heard, like, for sure, folks are waiting for a way to filter the statuses to a shorter and relevant list. But if anyone would love to, elaborate further, that'd be awesome.
I can talk more to this one, Cathy, because I haven't rolled it out to my teams yet here at Pinterest, but I will be adding this to the Q1 or FY24 roadmap of things I'm rolling out, because I'm planning that right now. The big thing I've seen in using this is the fact that we do have multiple instances, and with 96 teams in our Zendesk instances. So just being able to remove, it's like 60 fields across all of my instances that have these like custom team statuses, like workflow status fields that are custom fields that we use in conjunction with the normal default statuses. the operational change will just be fantastic. So that's one thing I'm looking forward to as far as envisioning using it, is just migrating a lot of those workflow statuses into the status field. Is one of the biggest things. I imagine a lot of people on the call have a field or multiple fields that kind of tell you where a ticket's at in the workflow, because new, open, pending, on hold, solve doesn't quite give you the full granularity you're looking for. And with that will come reporting updates as well. So we can identify where in those workflows and those work streams there are problems, or where there is, we're not meeting either SLAs or meeting like expected results. I use it. I think more data is always good, and that's where I see this being the most helpful from an operations standpoint, is tech debt cleanup and insights, and at an agent level, just better, more consistent workflows, and better, more consistent like process will be a lot better to tie it to a status than multiple places. Because people are human. They set something as on hold, but they don't set the other field, and that's not helpful to me as an operations manager. So that's how I envision using it. I alluded to the status I'd create earlier. I think each team will have their own toolbox of them they'll want. Shipping will probably want, sent, shipped, waiting information, stuff like that. But I'll be pulling a lot of those statuses from the custom fields we're already storing the data in. Like I said, that's like 50 or 60 total fields across all of my instances, because each team has one essentially.
Cool. Thank you for sharing. Can I ask a follow-up question in terms of, it sounds like you have things set up and you're just planning to roll it out next year. Are you setting these up in your Sandbox account, or you're like,
Yeah,
you're going to reconfigure?
Yeah, so I do. I have a dedicated test instance that we call pin testing, because we like puns at Pinterest. And then each of the individual sandboxes, we have metadata sandboxes. So we have a lot of that configured. If you're telling me that you're going to plug into the deploy process that just came out for the enhanced sandboxes, that would make me super happy as well, because that's where I build all this stuff. Like, part of our change management process is to have changes done in sandbox and then push to prod.
Okay.
So
because we are in talks with that team to provide that feature where you could configure all your custom statuses in Sandbox, and then with a click, like, have them transition over to production.
I got a chance to use that feature last week for some trigger updates, and it worked wonderfully. And I've been begging for that since I worked at Zendesk 10 years ago. And it made my little advocate soul so happy. And the more features that can plug into it, the better. So again, I'm glad that you're thinking along those lines, because I think as enterprise customers, like, we have to have a change management process. We should be doing stuff in a sandbox first. We don't always do, but we should be doing stuff in sandbox and deploying it. So that's really important to me from, again, an operations standpoint.
Totally. Yep.
I appreciate Kate's comment. Kate said she doesn't have a mic working right now, but I really resonate with the ability to eliminate hacked workflows that they have created with fields, groups, and other things. We have 22 brands. They don't cross over at all. We have so many hacks in our system, and I'm very excited to use custom statuses to kind of improve that process for the different product lines.
Yes, thanks for sharing. Awesome. Anyone else want to share how they envision themselves using custom ticket status?
Can I flip that question back onto you, Cathy, and just ask, what has been some really successful uses for other customers that have used it that we haven't brought up yet? I'm just curious if you've seen any really cool use cases that we haven't talked about.
One that comes to mind is that you could create a status called OK to close, and then you could make a trigger so that it closes the ticket pretty instantly, for a variety of reasons, whether it's because the customer abandoned or because it's like a one-touch type of solution. So then that just gives you, one, the context that this is okay to close, two, a trigger to be able to, have that close immediately and get that out of your queue. Can't really think of other ones off the top of my head other than the ones that I've shared in my demo. Yeah. I mean, people are definitely, I think definitely the struggle is that it's a long list of custom ticket statuses. And so without being able to filter that to a shorter relevant list, it does make it challenging. So for smaller companies, who only need a couple more extra statuses, that for sure, yeah, works for them. But for larger folks like you, totally understand that you would need the enhancements to move forward. Yeah, I think other ones, just like if a status has been in a certain time for like in a much longer time than one would expect, you can, reassign the ticket to a different group, you can escalate it, things like that.
Cool. That answers my question. We're welcome to go to the next one.
I feel like we've kind of already talked about this one, so I'll skip there. So yeah, I mean, we shared a couple of enhancements that are in development, that are planned, and that are under consideration. Are there any ones that we've shared in particular that really resonate with you, or are there other enhancements that you'd like to see that are not on our radar?
I think the one most people were most excited about was the restrictive to form and brand. I think I brought up a couple myself around like access controls to who can edit them and stuff like that, bulk update features, plugging into other existing platform features on Zendesk would be great. Trying to think if there's anything else that you didn't already kind of preface from my perspective. Though I want to ask you a little bit about the worst feature in Zendesk ticket sharing. How does that actually tie into, how do custom statuses tie into ticket sharing agreements and stuff like that? Because I would think that'd be something to work on if it isn't being considered.
Yeah, we are working on that right now, and I will say there's still more work to be done on it. But as a first step, we want to enable custom ticket statuses syncing for shared tickets, but you would need to have that custom ticket status live in both the sharing and the receiving accounts. And so in a future world, we would love to provide something in product that would allow them to basically align on those statuses. But right now, it would have to be an offline kind of agreement of like, here are the statuses that we should share amongst our shared tickets. And then if those are configured, those should sync and reflect accordingly. And so that's something that's in development.
No, that's great to know. I think it's very specific if you do have a multi-Zendesk ecosystem, which isn't going to hopefully always be the case for even for me. I'm hoping I can get us down to 2 at some point where there is no crosstalk, but yeah, fingers crossed on that one. But I'm excited to hear that you're thinking about those things. This feels like it's been a long time coming as a Zendesk platform feature. Like I said, this is something I know as an advocate 10 years ago, we were asking for even in Z1 in Zendesk to like be able to move stuff around. So I'm excited to see where this goes. I think the future-proof conversations are top of mind for me of how you're planning to plug into the other new features coming out at a platform level. But I think it's a wonderful base to start with, and it's better than we've had in the past. And the biggest problem is definitely the here's 95 statuses list. So you're already tackling, I think, the biggest deterrent and biggest problem that most of us have identified. So
yeah, thanks Nicholas. Totally. There's definitely a lot of room to optimize custom ticket statuses. And I just want to say, thank you so much, everyone, for, sharing about like how you're using it or how you envision using it and some of the ways that you would love to enhance the feature so that it can be usable for your use cases. It's your feedback that really helps us, build more valuable solutions. So just wanted to say thank you. And I know we're almost at time. I did drop some links in the chat. So the first one is just, if you want to start creating your first CTS, there's some directions there. You all have already provided abundant feedback, but if you wanted to fill out our survey, you're more than welcome to. And then if you are interested in participating in our closed EAP for when you can associate statuses to forms, please fill out that third link form. And then I also dropped the link for if you wanted to set up the reporting so that you can see the count of your tickets across each of your custom statuses.
That is fantastic, Cathy. Thank you so very, very much. It is immensely appreciated. And thank you for taking the time to talk to us. You're welcome back anytime
Thank you.
Come out. Me and Tiffany are always looking for more people and PMs to come in. Tell your other PM friends to come to our group as well. We'd love to.
I will, yes.
All the new features, but really appreciate you taking the time to demo that for us and offer the platform for feedback. That's really how we want to use the user group when we have guests from Zendesk actually here, because it's a great venue for enterprise feedback. So it's very much appreciated.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
This discussion that we can hear how others are using it. I know it gives us a focus, and I really do appreciate your time, Cathy.
Thank you. Thanks so much, everyone. It was nice to meet you all. And yeah, I'm definitely going to tell more PMs about the user group session. This is my first one, so definitely a good first experience. Thank you all.
Tell them to come prepared for hard questions. I don't go easy.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, thanks again and have a good rest of your week.
Take care. Goodbye,
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone.
Bye.